Dalton is more than $3.5 million in the hole. Mayor Tiffany Henyard is accused of misusing money, and today, she's nowhere to be found.
I've never seen any municipality have so many credit cards out there. Orders going out to each. It is mind-boggling.
When you don't answer questions, there's something to hide.
Despite Tiffany Henyard's seemingly carefree demeanor, panic was brewing as more people began turning against her in a shocking turn of events. One of Henyard's former trusted assistants came forward, exposing the depths of her corruption and questionable dealings. This revelation unveiled a web of unethical behavior that sent shockwaves through the community. The drama surrounding Henyard's downfall unfolded rapidly as fresh evidence emerged, further complicating her already dire circumstances. Once the influential mayor of Dalton, Henyard oversaw a political empire that had appeared unshakable. However, her empire quickly crumbled, and with it, her reputation. The most recent blow came from Carmen Caro, one of Henyard's closest allies. Caro, a trustee on the Fen Township Board, publicly accused the 41-year-old mayor of unethical conduct and using predatory tactics to amass power. According to Caro, Henyard manipulated residents, employees, and vendors while creating a false illusion of success funded by taxpayer money. Despite her outward persona as a super mayor, Henyard could no longer escape scrutiny. In a public speech, Henyard attempted to shift blame onto others for the ongoing crisis, but her defense only highlighted the severity of her situation. Caro explained her silence over the years regarding Henyard's lavish spending and questionable financial practices, stating that she felt compelled to speak out after witnessing a pattern of behavior she could no longer ignore. "I'm standing up not for myself, but for others who have been harmed by what I see as Henyard's leadership," Caro stated. Many were taken aback by Caro's sudden willingness to break her silence. Her delay in speaking out was understandable, given Henyard's grip on local law enforcement and the public narrative. Henyard's public speech, which deflected responsibility and blame, did little to quell the growing discontent. At one point, Henyard appeared to attempt intimidation, saying, "I think I'm going to call you something else." Caro responded by explaining her initial faith in the administration, but noted that once she lost that faith, she began to doubt the process. Henyard's attempt to discredit Caro backfired when Caro made it clear she was done staying in the background and ready to expose Henyard's unethical actions. Caro recounted a significant incident where Henyard misrepresented a foundation she was involved with and shared how Henyard came to her home, attempting to coerce her into lying about the foundation's origins. These allegations painted a picture of a mayor willing to manipulate others to preserve her power and image. Meanwhile, trustee Chris Gonzalez, who had long raised concerns about Henyard's financial mismanagement, took center stage. For months, Gonzalez persistently requested financial documents and answers about Henyard's questionable spending, but his inquiries were largely ignored. The mounting pressure culminated in a tense board meeting that felt more like an intervention. During the 15th board meeting, the agenda focused heavily on Henyard's alleged financial mismanagement. The board proposed several ordinances to curb corruption, including restrictions on travel expenses, tighter budget controls, credit monitoring guidelines, and a ban on using township assets for personal gain. As the board debated these measures, it became clear that the pushback against Henyard's leadership was not just political, but a matter of public accountability. The most surprising move came when Gonzalez nominated Henyard for a key position on the board, despite the growing evidence of her corruption. The nomination, made just minutes before the midnight deadline, seemed out of place given the tense atmosphere. However, it turned out that Henyard had applied for the position earlier in the year. This last-minute nomination only underscored the deep divisions within the township. Despite the tumultuous situation, Henyard was appointed to the position by a slim vote. However, the appointment did little to quell the mounting opposition against her. Instead, it exposed how fractured her once solid support base had become. As the vote was cast and the decision made, it became increasingly clear that Henyard's time as mayor was nearing its end. Her power was eroding, and the walls of her political empire were crumbling around her. Former allies, including Caro and Gonzalez, had turned against her, painting a picture of a leader who had lost touch with the people she once served. The full extent of Henyard's alleged corruption was beginning to surface. With each new revelation, it became harder for her to maintain her position of authority. What had once seemed like an invincible political career was now in rapid decline. As more individuals came forward to share their stories of manipulation, financial misconduct, and unethical behavior under Henyard's leadership, the community remained on edge, awaiting the next shocking development in this ongoing scandal. Henyard's fall from grace was far from over, and with each passing day it became clearer that the once powerful mayor would soon face the full consequences of her actions.
Thornton Township Supervisor, how do you feel right now?
Oh man, I'm overjoyed. I didn't see it coming. I love it. That means that I am truly blessed that everyone loves.
Several residents of Dalton were convinced that the Board of Trustees had a hidden agenda when they decided to nominate Tiffany Henyard for a key position. Many believed the trustees were attempting to keep the decision out of the public eye, fearing the backlash that would result from an open and transparent process. However, the effects of trustee Chris Gonzalez's hasty nomination of Henyard reverberated throughout the entire village, intensifying the unrest surrounding the mayor's office. Naturally, the town's residents were furious. One resident, expressing their outrage, stated, "I'm devastated that this woman came into our town and wasted all of our tax dollars." The resident added, "I suspected it all along. We have elderly people who can't even buy the most basic necessities because of her corruption. Tiffany has to be imprisoned and used as an example. She can't just keep spending our money like..." This. Carmen Caro, a former ally of Henyard, claimed that the general consensus among the people of Dalton was that Henyard should be removed from her position. The community, already suffering from the effects of Henyard's alleged financial misconduct, had reached a breaking point. As Henyard attempted to maintain control, pressure mounted from all directions. During a board meeting, Henyard tried to push through an important agenda item and requested backup invoices from the finance department, clearly attempting to avoid scrutiny of her spending. However, trustee Chris Gonzalez was not fooled by her actions. In July, Henyard replaced Keith Freeman, a former employee who had dared to expose her questionable spending, with Keith Price, a loyal ally, without seeking board approval. This move was widely seen as an attempt to tighten her grip on the township's finances by placing someone she trusted in charge. Gonzalez, however, pointed out that Price had no authority to handle sensitive financial documents without proper authorization. Determined to ensure Henyard could not sidestep the issue, Gonzalez pressed forward despite the lack of formal procedure. Henyard attempted to convince the board that Price's appointment did not require board approval, even claiming that it had been approved all along. However, as the meeting progressed, it became evident that Gonzalez would not allow her to manipulate the situation any longer. When Henyard called for a vote on the invoices, clearly hoping to crush the motion, she was met with resistance. Despite her efforts, Henyard lost this round, signaling a shift in the balance of power. It became clear that her once loyal allies were no longer willing to support her actions. Henyard was the only trustee to vote against the motion, while Gonzalez and Caro voted in favor of obtaining the invoices. Villagers eagerly awaited the outcome of the vote, hoping it would mark a turning point in their favor. Despite this small victory for Henyard's opponents, the tension in the township remained high, and the battle for control over Dalton was far from over. Henyard, still clinging to power, attempted to defend her position, but efforts to expose her financial dealings only grew stronger. For those who supported the motion, it was a significant step toward uncovering the truth about Henyard's financial mismanagement and questionable practices. Whether Henyard could weather the storm and retain her position was uncertain, but the tide was clearly turning against her. In a last-ditch attempt to regain control of the situation, Henyard called for a special Thornton Township board meeting, hoping to reverse the recent ordinances that had been put in place to curb unchecked spending. The new regulations required that all expenses be pre-approved, a direct blow to Henyard's reckless spending style. When none of the 4 township trustees showed up to the meeting, Henyard reacted angrily. She claimed that these new measures were preventing the township from providing essential services to children and senior citizens. "You thought this was just a way to stop Tiffany Henyard," she said, "but it's really about stopping the services here in Thornton Township." Despite Henyard's anger, it was clear that the board's objective was to ensure accountability and responsibility in spending. The board had imposed stringent new regulations to prevent further financial mismanagement and safeguard the township's resources.